Definitely missing chicklets. There's like, how many were there? Like 4? Oh boy, a lot of pressure on them. Just get me to November. That's the state of my surf fishing gear right now. For surf fishing, one of the most important aspects for safety and for getting to where you want to fish is having the right traction on your wading boots. Wading boots come with a number of different soles. You have rubber, Vibram, you've got felt, you have aluminum bars, which actually are pretty good, pretty sticky, and you have studded soles. If you do any surf fishing around rocks, especially rocks coated in vegetation, there is no replacement for tungsten carbide studs. Tungsten carbide is harder and denser than steel, which allows it to bite into rocks when you're walking over them. That gives you a much more secure footing. Now, there are sandals that have these tungsten studs that you can put over your wading boots, but this does tend to add a lot of weight. If you're doing any wetsuiting or any swimming, you kind of want to minimize how heavy your boot is. So I prefer to add the studs directly to my wading boots. If you saw episode 3 of From the Surf, you saw that I was kind of long overdue for a new pair of wading boots. So I just got these, literally just took them out of the box, and I'm going to add the studs to them right now. But first I'm going to talk about my last pair of wading boots and what went wrong with my installation of the studs, where they weren't as good as they probably could have been. So the studs I used when putting them into these wading boots a couple seasons ago, you can see a lot of them have rolled over, some of them have popped out completely or broken, and man, these things have gotten pretty slippery over the last couple trips, which really prompted me to go and buy these new ones to finish out my surf fishing season. Now, if you look, none of these studs are pointing the way they were when I installed them in. They're all, they're shifted one direction or the other. The reason for that is these particular studs did not have a very wide base, so there wasn't much to keep them in that position. If I'd known better at the time, I would have added a washer between the boot and these studs when I installed them, which would have added rigidity and kept them pointing straight out to better grip the rocks. Also, the choice of a Vibram sole maybe wasn't the best choice for adding studs to my wading boots. So before I bought my new boots, I talked to Simms Pro and kind of surf fishing renaissance man Frank Gonsalves about what boots he uses and what studs he installs on them. Now, Frank puts a ton of miles on his wading boots throughout the season, and his answer kind of surprised me. He said he doesn't use Vibram, but instead he likes felt. So felt soles are pretty popular among freshwater fishermen. When felt gets wet and it's contacting a wet rock, it does provide some pretty good traction. It's next to useless in saltwater, on saltwater rocks, because any level of vegetation is going to get between that felt and the rock and it's going to make them incredibly slippery. But Frank said the felt actually holds onto the studs and keeps them in place a little bit better than the Vibram. Frank suggested that in warmer water, say water over 70 degrees, if you're surf fishing in that, the Vibram warms up, softens a little bit, and that could cause it to shed cleats or have the cleats shift inside them. He said the felt is more rigid and holds the cleats better in their original position from when he installs them. For my new wading boots, I'm going to use the INS Rock Grabbers carbide studs. Now, these have a much wider base than the ones I used previously, so I don't think I need to use the washer between them and the boot in order to keep them in place. That nice wide base should snug up perfectly to the boot, keep them in place. Frank said they did. He showed me his boots that he's used after countless hours in the surf, and the studs look pretty much in the same place that they were on the day he installed them. Now, no matter what studs you buy, most of them come with an attachment that allow you to install them in the boot. You can either put them in a screwdriver or into your drill, and they will fit that stud perfectly and allow for easy installation into your wading boot. Now, before I dive into wading them, I want to make some sort of a plan for where I want to put the studs. I don't just want to put them in there willy-nilly. So you have to think, where are going to be your high wear areas? How are you going to distribute your weight when you're out there on the rocks trying to find balance? You obviously want a few on the heel, and you definitely want to go heavier here, on the ball of the foot and on the front of the foot, because that's where you're going to lead with as you step over these rocks. This is where you really need the traction, so you can get that good grip and get yourself to where you need to fish, and then keep you there, through waves, through heavy currents, through all the challenges we surf fishermen face. Now, these boots, which are Simms G3 guide boots, they do provide a little bit of guidance on where you want to put the studs. I'm not going to follow this to a T. I'm going to add a few more studs than they suggest. This might be fine in a river environment. Surf is a little bit heavier duty. I'm going to want more studs, more to keep me in place. So I'm going to get started putting them in right now, starting with the heel right here. I'm going to add 5 studs, kind of in your classic 5 pattern you'd see on the dice. Now, after installing it, I want to make sure that it is sitting flush to the felt and that I've got it totally snug down there. I don't want to go too far. I don't want to kind of strip out the sole so that it's more likely to come out. So I go in there until it feels nice and snug. It's pointed straight out from where it is, so it's less likely to roll over. So that's the first one. So ultimately, I'll probably put 15 or 16 of the studs in there until I feel like I've got pretty good coverage, and then they'll be ready to take out into the surf. So that's the heel configuration there. I'm going to add more to the front here. So it's definitely going to have more studs toward the front of the foot because that's what I'm leading with. This is basically to keep me in place. These are to help me get over those slick rocks. So I need a little bit extra traction, a little more grippiness here in the front of the foot. So I'm going to add another, I'd say 8 or 9 studs to the front of this.